Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for joining us. Well, the increasing use of debit and credit cards, but first, the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania, Tim DeFoor, joins me, and we're going to get into his latest school audit. We'll get to that after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania released an audit of school boards and their taxation and spending, and it has gotten huge press across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Joining me to chat about that and more is, in fact, the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania, Tim DeFoor. General DeFoor, thanks for joining me.
Terry, thank you for having me.
You're always welcome. All right, well, let's start with the fact that you did a school board audit of 12?
Of 12 school districts.
12 school districts, but it's a trend that if you expanded that, you'd probably find elsewhere, correct?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back a few years. And prior to even me becoming Auditor General, there have been concerns from the general legislature and concerns from residents that school boards were raising taxes without considering the residents and without putting it up for a vote. So finally we decided to do an audit, and we created a formula where we selected 12 schools from across the state, each from different urban and rural, and also from wealthier and from poor tax bases, to determine if they were in fact using Department of Education referendum exceptions to in fact raise taxes, and if
they're raising taxes using an exception in the law. So what they did, we can argue about the policy, but it wasn't illegal, correct?
Yes, and that's one of the things that I want to make perfectly clear. What was done, none of this was in fact illegal, but one of the things that we did discover that was done is that they used the law to their advantage. That's why one of the recommendations that we made in our audit, and we made it to recommendations for the General Assembly, for the schools in the Department of Education, is to tighten up the laws, tighten up the requirements to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
Well, explain exactly what the school districts were doing.
Well, what they were doing, for example, and what we looked at in our audit, we looked at funds that were in the general fund. That was our main focus. And if schools have a certain amount of money in their general fund, then they either can or they can't raise taxes, but they have to, of course, ask the voters. So what we found that what some of the schools were doing, they were in fact moving money from the general fund, and they were moving it and earmarking it in other accounts, stating that there wasn't a lot of money in the general fund. Therefore, they would ask the Department of Education for an exemption so they could raise taxes to replenish the money in the general fund. But if you look at the other accounts, they had more than enough money to cover any cost.
Yeah, but again, what you are arguing for in the audit is that the state legislature needs to change the law because obviously you have an audit that shows what school districts are doing, but it's not illegal. So
correct.
We're arguing about policy.
It's exactly, and that's what it was about. One of the things that the school boards are talking about, the reason why they were doing it this way is that they don't know how much money they're going to receive from the state. They have to submit their budget on June 30th of every year. The state, of course, has to have their budget done by June 30th. And as we both know,
many times they've gone into the fall of a given year.
So one of the things that we recommended is that the schools be able to push back when they submit their budget, giving them more time to fully know and understand how much money they're going to receive.
We're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to get the general response from the school districts, and then something that I'm going to call Be Money Smart. We'll do all of that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
All right, I'm chatting with the Auditor General of the state of Pennsylvania, Tim DeFoor. We're talking about an important school district audit that received huge attention throughout the state, coverage, I might say, as well. All right, General DeFoor, overall, what has been the response from, I know the general coverage has been enormous, but what have the school districts said? I'm sure they've responded.
Well, nobody likes to be audited, and when they are audited, nobody likes to be told that we had some findings. So the response has kind of been all over the place. Some understand and agreed with some of our recommendations, and there are some who just don't. And when you have an audit like this, or any type of audit, that's something that we've come to understand, that this is something that's going to happen. But one of the things that we ask is that everybody takes a non-biased eye and just look at the facts of the audit report and then make a decision for yourself.
Yeah.
But also, if the schools would like to meet, I mean, I have a very open door.
Yeah. How about lawmakers? Are they likely to make the change that you recommend?
You know what? Eventually, when they come back, when they come back, yes, I'm sure we're going to have that conversation. We haven't heard anything as of yet, and of course, we just had a press conference yesterday, and we released the audit report yesterday. So we haven't heard anything from the legislator as of yet.
Yeah. Well, let's go to another topic that you and I chatted about, and maybe you used the term "be money smart."
Yes.
What's that mean?
Yes, be money smart. That is our financial literacy initiative. Yeah. I mean, one of the things that we realize is that throughout Pennsylvania, our students from kindergarten through 12th grade, there's a need to teach them financial literacy. And there is a want. If you talk to students, if you talk to educators, there's a want to teach financial literacy. So one of the things that we did when we kicked off our financial literacy initiative in November of 2021, we went across the state speaking to different organizations, talking about and highlighting some of the programs that are out there teaching financial literacy, with the hope one day that financial literacy is taught from every school in Pennsylvania from kindergarten through 12th grade. But right now, what our initiative is to bring awareness, working with other organizations, working with credit unions, and working with the YMCAs, and working with different organizations who feel the same way as we do.
Of course, you're not the first statewide public official that's made that argument on this show over the years. And it's tough given school curricular offerings to try to get that into the curriculum, given all the pressure to do a variety of things.
It's tough, but one of the things that we don't have to do, we don't have to reinvent the wheel in Pennsylvania. There are other states, there are 20 other states that offer financial literacy in their schools. And all we need to do is just look what some of the other states have done, and then just tailor it towards Pennsylvania. But it's going to take a collaborative effort with the legislature, with the teachers, and with the executive offices of the Commonwealth to make this happen. And I believe that one day it's going to happen.
All right. So what do you do? What audits are you performing now?
Well, one of the things that I don't do, as you know, I don't talk about some of the audits that we are currently performing and some of the things that we're going to do. But just so you know, we are extremely busy. We have some things coming up. Yes, as always, we have some things coming up, and I'll definitely be back here on your show to talk about those.
Okay.
But we are extremely busy.
Yeah. Now, overall, the general response to your audits, I asked that about this one in particular, but overall it's been more favorable, positive, or, I mean, obviously you're going to have your critics.
Yeah, people are asking questions. People are asking questions, and they're going to want to know, how did this happen? And there are a series of things that cause this to happen. But one of the things that I ask that everybody does is that go on our website, pull up the audit report, and read it so you can get an understanding of what we did when we performed this audit.
Well, look, I want to thank you for coming on, and when you have another audit, we'll ring you up, or you ring us up, and we'll have you on. All right, talking about money, how about debit and credit cards and some problems with them, and we'll get to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by
CrossState Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, we're going to continue to talk about your money. We're going to emphasize in the next couple of segments debit and credit cards and data breaches, some important aspects of our economic life, I should say, and of our personal financial side of things. And joining me to do that is Pam Mohn. She's the CEO of the York Educational Federal Credit Union, and Nicola Foggie. She's the Chief Regulatory Officer with CrossState Credit Union Association. Well, ladies, thanks for coming on the program. Boy, these are really important subjects. So I'll start with you, Pam. Let's talk about debit and credit cards.
We've been thrown into an environment where it's pushing us to use our debit and credit cards more. We came out of the pandemic where we couldn't get into our financial institutions to get that cash that we were so used to getting. So now we're using our debit and credit cards more, and we really need to be careful. We need to really track our spending with those, because it's easy to order online, forget that purchase, printing out those receipts. So it's important to really watch how you're using that, and check your accounts. Make sure that the transactions that you purchased are showing up on there. And if there isn't something that you purchased and it is on your account, then you need to call us so we can help you through that process of finding out whether it was fraud or an actual purchase.
Yeah. Now, Nicola, one of the things is increasing use over the internet to purchase things. I know that goes on in my family.
Oh, absolutely. So that has increased. So previously, you think about years ago, plastic card payment volume was about 15%, I would say, in the 80s, but nowadays it's up to 60% use. And so last year there were more than 1 billion electronic payments made via the internet, totaling more than $300 billion. That's billion with a B.
When you think about it, it's unbelievable, the growth, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So folks have adopted this method of payment, card payment, electronic payment, as their daily means of utilizing their finances.
Well, Pam, the fact of the matter is it's easy. I mean, you have a card, you give you put it in a machine, or you hand it to a clerk or somebody, and it's just so easy. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to worry about carrying all this cash.
Right.
Absolutely. It's convenience. It's all about convenience and making the transactions easy for you so you can get in and get out. And again, it's about making sure you're tracking all your transactions. We're not doing the cash. And yeah, it's made it very easy for a lot of people to kind of get away from tracking their expenses.
Yeah, but with the increased convenience comes the additional rise, I should say, because it keeps going up, of risk of credit and debit card fraud.
Right. And so fraud is at an all-time high. Consumers' exposure include, scammers, fraudsters accessing their private information. And so data breaches of information, private information and financial information has increased by 45% since 2021. Wow. As a matter of fact, the very well-known credit agency Experian says that by 2023 is going to be, or this year is going to be the worst year ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most organizations, financial institutions, don't contact you to request personal or account information. So if they do that, that's another key sign, isn't it? If you get a phone call or a text message saying, please send this information, we need your account number.
Exactly. We don't call our members unless they initiate a call to us regarding an issue with their account. So when you get that call from your financial institution, they're asking for that information, that should be a big red flag for you to call us. Hang up, call us, right, and let us know what your experience is, because we need to know that information too, so we can share that with the membership. Yeah. And you know, with all the fraud going on out there, we have so many tools available to our members. You know, we can unlock and lock the cards. We do a lot of cyber training where we look at email addresses, make sure that they're what we're used to seeing, look at what the email says, what's the grammar, what's the spelling look like. So we do a lot of training internally, and we try and share that with our membership so that they have that knowledge.
All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about data and data breaches and how significant that is, and we'll get to that.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
All right, the big question, will 2023 be the year of the data breach? All right, Nicola, let's start with data breaches. And first of all, what's a data breach?
So a data breach, Terry, is when some fraudster, some cyber criminal has hacked into either your personal information, your account, or else into an industry that you have private information. If you remember that Target breach, I don't think anybody can forget the Target breach. It was one of the first large breaches that affected so many people. It affected me, as a matter of fact. And so data breaches don't affect just one industry. It doesn't just affect the financial institution industry, credit unions. But let me give you a couple startling statistics. 4,000 breaches resulted in 5 billion records compromised just last year. Companies like Poshmark, online retailers, Capital One, who deals with credit cards, Twitter, and also the U.S. Department of Education, as well as Dunkin' Donuts. Who doesn't use Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, and you have another statistic here. Nearly every 12 hours on average in last year, there has been a data breach in the U.S.
Yeah. Last year, 43% of data breaches came from the healthcare industry. Think about it. We give them everything: name, social security number, address, birthday, next of kin. So all that information that they need to perhaps hack into your particular.
And the bigger point about this, Pam, is it can happen in any industry, in any business, in any part of our environment, correct?
That's correct. It happens everywhere, and there's no end to it. We don't see an end in it happening. We see it probably happening more frequently, as the statistics are showing us. And, you know, it's a little scary when you find out your information's out there floating around in what they call the dark web. And again, we do a lot of training with our staff. We do internal IT procedures that surf the dark web for that information to make sure that we're not being breached. Yeah. So we've got a lot of things in place to help us have that happen.
What sort of surprised me was last year almost 50%, actually 43%, given the data that you sent me, the breaches came from the healthcare industry. Is it me, or did that seem like a surprise?
That did seem like a surprise, because they do have such a database with all our information, and where's the security? What is their training? What are they, firewalls? What are they doing to help protect us and that, that personal information we have out there?
If I can make one point, whether it's the healthcare industry or another industry, sometimes a breach occurs because of a partner or third-party vendor that company is dealing with, and their protocols are not as strong. And so sometimes they do what's called worming their way into your database as a company. So that can occur as well.
Yeah. Now, if we turn to consumer exposure, I mean, a lot of credit cards, Visa, MasterCard to mention too, there's zero liability. Does that make people more likely to say, oh, okay?
It can, but when that happens, we encourage our members to contact that merchant first to see if they can come to some kind of resolution with that fraud purchase. But, we're out there to protect the consumer. So a lot of it does fall on the credit union or, your financial institution to cover those fraud costs.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, when you have fraud, it's not an easy thing to get it all straightened out.
That's correct. And just to tag on to what Pam was saying, the cost to financial institutions, including credit unions, can be enormous because credit unions are the ones responsible for communicating the bad news to a consumer, to their member, and that they have been breached, and then we have to help them fix it. And there's costs to those types of communications and helping them become whole again.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I said, time-consuming and very frustrating.
Mm-hmm. It is very frustrating. Not only, we get a little frustrated because we want to help fix this, but it's very frustrating for our consumers, our members, because this is, we see it daily. They don't. So they get very nervous. They get very frustrated and feel like they don't have any help. And that's when they really need to contact us.
Yeah. So let me pick up on that. Mm-hmm. Consumers protecting themselves. What are your recommendations?
And I'm going to bring Pam into this as well. But the one thing I want to say is identity theft affects everyone. Yeah. It causes the cost of goods to go up, cost of protection that companies have to put in place, the technology they have to put in place. So consumers, while some credit card companies like Visa and MasterCard have, issued policies that say zero liability, there's still a lot of work to do to fix a consumer's credit account should their credit be affected because of identity theft. And so consumers, in essence, can certainly turn to their credit union if they have been breached. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the credit union debit card or credit card. We will help you get the resources that you need.
You need to do this on a regular basis, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, it seems every day we get a new case of fraud coming in. And there's a process. You have to dispute the charges, and then it's back and forth between the credit card company, us, the member, the merchant. So it is very time-consuming, and it's like we said before, it can be frustrating.
Thank you. Great update. Yeah. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, you stay safe.